anybody who doesn't know anything, just now learning about crypto, can impress their friends. Big B versus little b Bitcoin. What's the difference?
Yes, big B versus little b Bitcoin. When you see Bitcoin written out, capital B Bitcoin is the Bitcoin blockchain, the actual blockchain, which is separate from little b Bitcoin, which is the actual currency. Two totally different things. Oh, and by the way, for the people who say Bitcoin and not blockchain and blockchain, stop that. You can't have one without the other. So, but again.
What's up, what's up, what's up? Lana, how are you doing? First one in. I'm gonna kill some time. I got a little background noise going. Little J. Cole, Love Yours. I figure with everything going on today, kind of hard to always see the bright, so always remind ourselves to love what we have, the lives we have are the best we can. So I gotta give Caleb Silver the idea for the bring-in music. I was on Investopedia last week with Brittany Castro, and we got to do the intro-outro music, and I like that. So hello to Ange watching on the Roman and Leo account. Downtown Josh Brown, I'm nervous now. I'm nervous. Pulling in some big people. We're waiting for Tyrone to get here, but gonna have a good conversation. So as I was explaining, we got J. Cole, Love Yours in the background, kind of keeping us in a good vibe, given everything going on. You know, it could be a struggle, but at the same time, we're all very fortunate. We're hopping on Instagram Live 7 o'clock on a Thursday night. We've got the ability to do that. We're healthy enough. And we're going to have a fun conversation about crypto, digital assets. And I also think it'd be kind of cool for people to see this dynamic between Tyrone and I. I'm going to give a little background on Tyrone before he gets here. He is the first person I saw as a financial advisor, Alexa off, speaking about crypto. So our story is we met because of Twitter. I started going down the crypto rabbit hole myself. I saw this advisor out in New York talking about it, having an opinion on it. So I actually just reached out to him and said, hey, you want to come on my podcast? So it was early on in All About Your Benjamins, the podcast. He came on, and I'll never forget, it was a Friday afternoon, which I never do podcasts on Fridays because I'm selfish. I want to get home to the family. But we did it, and he had to run from his apartment to his parents' apartment because the internet connection was too weak. So we didn't get done until pretty late on a Friday, put that podcast out, and since then we have become very close friends. Every Friday, we do a Friday morning Zoom. I text him all the time to check in, see how he's doing. He's become like a brother. So it's only natural that the first one of these I do is with Tyrone. And the reason I chose crypto is that I'm starting to see some more people ask questions about it. I don't know if it's everything going on and the politics behind different things going on and distrust in the government, but I'm having questions. People ask questions about cryptocurrencies. And I saw Tyrone tweet out this article that we're going to mention about the issues with estate planning when it comes to digital assets and crypto. I'm going to check and see if Tyrone is in here, if I need to invite him. We did a test run, so I should know how to do this. But anyways, so there's different, these assets are different. So what I want to have Tyrone do, and we'll get this out of the way so when he comes in, we get right into it, is give us a high level. I'm going to assume that some of us joining tonight do not know much about digital assets and cryptocurrencies and what's the difference. So I want to have Tyrone give us a high level, and then we'll dive in a little bit further and get a little bit more specific, and then we'll talk about some of the nuances with crypto and kind of the estate planning things, because that's something that we need about if we're going to go down this route. So Tyrone should be joining right now. We'll wait for him to pop on. There he is.
Hey.
How's it going, man?
What's going on? It's hard for me to hear you. Weird. All right, hold on.
Real?
Yeah, I hope that's
Hopefully
right.
everybody else can hear me all right. So what you missed, I gave everybody kind of our backstory real quick. So you can watch the replay. I'm going to make sure that when we get done, I'm going to record this, download this video, and true to form, I'm going to run it. It's going to go on YouTube. It's going to be a podcast episode. It's going to live on the Instagram TV station as well. So I gave us our background, how we met, our first podcast. You were the guy that I came to when I started to learn crypto and realized, hey, I don't need to learn too much more because I can just hit Ty up and get his information and help him have him help me help my clients. We get an hour's worth of time. So you were a couple minutes late, so we're into our hour.
I thought that's how these IG live things work. Like the guest shows up late. I thought that's what
true.
you do.
Hey, this is my first time, so I'm learning. I just know that when we were growing up at high school, we worked out with the basketball team, or the basketball team worked out with the football team. The football coaches always said to be early is to be on time is to be late, and to be late is to be forgotten. And I never like to be late. So
yeah, absolutely. I hear you.
Well, first up, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. I think it's going to be fun. I'm also excited for people to get to see our dynamic. One of these times, we're going to do a Friday morning, and we'll bring Doug in as well. Doug is going to be a future guest. It'll be him and I. But one time, we got to get three of us get going and just kind of act silly. But real quick, for anybody joining, first off, thank you for joining and taking the time. If you do not know,
get my shirt in here.
If you don't know who Tyrone is, Tyrone Ross is a financial advisor. He's the founder of 401, which is a storytelling company. He is the director of community at Altruist. He wears many hats. He's the voice for the voiceless. I think I got them all. More than anything, he is one of the most genuine, greatest human beings you will ever meet. If you don't know him, just go to Twitter, look at his profile, and look at the impact that he has on the community. The financial planning community, the financial services community, and I'm not so sure that some of his efforts have not gone into other areas. I look at now he's not a former track star. Dude is still a track star. He is still a track star.
I appreciate that.
But even I look at some of the things that we saw NFL players doing last year with the giving around Christmas and the layaway. You were the first person I saw doing that, and I'm not so sure that some of that didn't make its way into other atmospheres. So I'm honored to have him join us tonight to talk about cryptocurrency, digital assets, and some things we need to think about. So before we get way ahead of ourselves, assume that we've got some people who are just now learning about crypto, Tyrone, and digital assets. Give us the high level of what it is, and also what attracted you to learning more about this.
So a couple of things here before I get started. And I mentioned this during, the test run that we did. It's really important to never lose the moment. And I think this is a special moment for a couple of reasons. One, because of our relationship. Two, is how we actually started, right? I was the first one on your podcast talking about crypto, and to say that things have changed a lot since then is crazy. Mm-hmm. But there are, JB in the house. There are a lot of people who don't get access to financial advisors. There are a lot of people that don't get access to folks like you. You are the cream of the crop in our business, right? You and all the other CFPs. The rest of us are just, you know what I mean? We're the crumbs at the bottom.
That's seriously for another day.
Yeah, but seriously, this is really important that people get this access. Not a lot of people that come from where I come from or grew up how I grew up know what a financial advisor is, period, let alone have access to a CFP. So I don't want to lose the moment here that this is not necessarily about views. It's not necessarily about what people take out of this. It's just the access that people can log in right now and get this type of advice, this type of guidance. And to be honest, right, you are who you are. I am who I am. We can command a fee to speak. We go to conferences and all this other stuff, and people pay a good penny to hear what we have to say. So for us to be able to do this and give this content out for free and people to actually access it is really important to me. As you know, access is really important. So I don't take these things lightly, right? Because like my mother always says, you never know who's watching. And in this case, we don't. So thank you for doing this and even having this idea, because we hoard all of our information on Twitter, and, we hoard all of our information on LinkedIn, but within our own community. But right now, again, which leads me to my second point before we get started, there are roughly 40 million people out of work right now. Right. And they may be some of them may be watching this, and we have a responsibility, those of us that have all this financial knowledge now more than ever, to help. And more importantly, those of us that are blessed enough to wake up this morning with a job, we have a responsibility to go pour into the people who don't have right now. So that's how important this is. So thank you for doing this. Now that
I'll jump in real quick.
Yeah,
So the plan is, this is going to be, and even beyond, like once we get things back to normal, I want to do this every Thursday, 7 p.m. Well, I'm going to record it and put things out there again, but I want to start doing this. I looked at Matthew Kovac. He's been doing that for the New York Stock Exchange. I've been watching it. It's pretty cool. And when I see people doing things that I think are cool and I think I might be able to do, I want to do it as well. But I think this will be fun. And since this is on the RLS channel, this is going to be always financial planning related. But we'll get into bigger things as well. That being said, before we go too deep, I am the Chief Compliance Officer of RLS Wealth. I wear all the hats right now. So this is a conversation that is not meant to be advice. We are going to be talking about specific securities and things that come up. They're not recommendations. We're not saying you should go invest in anything. This is just an informational session to give you some knowledge, to ask questions, to educate yourself. And there are financial advisors out there, 2 of them right here, who can help you. So if you have questions, reach out and get professional advice. This is not meant to be that advice. This is just meant to help educate you and maybe answer some questions. And final point, speaking of questions, I'm going to do my best. I got my notebook to watch the chat and see if any questions come up and chime them in whenever I can. So I'll be watching that. First time doing it, so give me some grace if I don't hit everybody. And in your honor, I have some green tea that I'm drinking tonight. So,
nice.
I'm not an alcohol guy, so I wouldn't be having a cocktail or anything, but I figured I would do green tea because I know that's your drink of choice.
Yeah, and last thing before I get started, happy birthday to the greatest to ever do it, the notorious, glorious B.I.G. I got to get that out of the way.
You know who else's birthday is today?
Who's that?
Mr. Jason Wank.
That's right.
Happy birthday to Jason Wank. I had that in my notes when we were talking Altruist, and I forgot to mention it. So Jason, happy birthday. That's right. Well.
Yeah, I gotta shoot him a text after this. But yeah, man, we got all the pleasantries out the way.
All right,
and all the homework. If Mr. Wank is on, happy birthday, man. It's a big 4-0 too, 4th floor. I gotta welcome him to the 4th floor.
I got a couple years left before I hit that.
Oh, we keeping the seat for you. Don't worry.
All right. Well, let's get in so we can hit everything we want to hit tonight.
Yeah.
So initially, high level, what brought you to being interested in this space? And then let's define the space, because we were talking about it in the dress rehearsal, if you will. There is a difference between crypto and digital assets. And initially what sparked this was the post you had about digital assets and estate planning issues. So let's differentiate what that means and what the breakdown is and where things lie.
Yeah. We're going to get to all that, because I think a lot of information that people getting on crypto is wrong. It's biased. And the messenger matters. And I've been saying that for a really long time. So for financial advisors, the reason why financial advisors won't embrace crypto, let's get that right out of the way right now, is because all of these crypto companies, 1, aren't building for advisors, and 2, there's no advisors as part of their teams, right? So shout out to Eaglebrook. But, so if advisors want to hear from advisors, because I understand that trust is important, that security is important, that there's a certain due diligence, right? We don't want to get, fired and sued, like all of these things. So the messenger matters. With that said, what brought me to crypto was growing up in a home that was unbanked, growing up in a home that was financially illiterate. What clicked to me with Bitcoin was initially, I'm like, all right, wait a second. And again, a little bit of a history lesson here. Shout out to all my Caribbeans that are on. You're familiar with the Susu, or you're familiar with the Tanda, right? If you're Hispanic, or Jamaicans call it a hand, right? It's basically, it was the first blockchain ever created. Back to the 16th century, there were Dutch slaves that created something called a susu. So essentially, me and Justin, right, we have a hand, $100, right? Let's just call it $100. It's $200. We both put in our hand, right? And I'm going to need the 200 at some point. You're going to need the 200 at some point. You may say, Tyrone, I need it first. I have the bill to pay. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll take it the second week, and then I'll take the money. Trustless. We didn't have to ask anybody. There's no KYC. We didn't have to go to a bank. I know you, you know me. It's done. The transaction is done. No third party, decentralized, right? So my dad, other people that come to this country that are, again, a big place where you can see this is Brooklyn and Queens. A lot of folks who bought their first home, their cars, they pay bills, they do all these things. They can't go to a bank. They can't they can't go and get access to other types of capital markets. So what they do is in the community, they all put in these hands. Everyone gets a date. Everyone gets a hand at a certain date, right? So if you look at that, that sounds a lot like what? A blockchain, right? So which, if you look at Bitcoin, right, and you can never really describe it, and I'll get to that. But I'll say all this to say, growing up in that type of home, Bitcoin kind of stuck to me because I'm like, all right, this is something powerful for the unbanked because they've been left out of the banking system. And this is what bothers me about crypto the most, is that that's the product market fit. But they'll never tell you that. The people that are the quote unquote decision makers will never tell you that. But they'll tell you Argentina, Venezuela, the 1 point whatever it is, billion unbanked worldwide. Yes, I agree. And that's very much true. But we have 12% of the population right now, right? And here in the US that could use this. So for me, that's kind of when it clicked. And it only clicked after a friend of mine forced me to sit down, and he sent me some, right? And he sent it to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, wait a second. I got to pay attention to this. And he sent me some. I sent it to somebody else. It was instant. It was right then and there. Like, there was really no double checking of all these accounts and all these numbers. It was done. And as I've said multiple times on a whole bunch of podcasts, he put me in this group chat with a whole bunch of really smart, we'll get to that. That's a really good question. We'll get to that. He puts me in this group chat on Facebook, and super smart people, cryptographers and engineers and computer scientists. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, I really have nothing to add here. But I'm like, they're giving each other horrible investment advice. And that's when the light bulb went off. And I'm like, all right, there's an opportunity here. One, to educate the masses on it, but also there's a way where I can learn as much as I can about this and take this to people, my people, right? People in inner city communities or rural communities, and just to put the stamp on that point. The Susu now is, there is someone responsible, right? An oracle, so to speak, that's responsible for making sure everything runs smoothly. They take the money, they make sure the calendar is straight, they divvy it out. There's something called local Bitcoins where I can literally I can log in. It's like Craigslist for Bitcoin, right? It's very important that folks like myself get those people to understand that local Bitcoins exist, so that now they could take that into those communities and say, look, you can get access to this asset, right? And then also we can sell it right away. You can match up with someone to sell it. And then you can send, a remittance to Jamaica or Guyana or Trinidad or whatever the case may be. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but for me, I realized, I'm like, all right, this is super powerful in terms of helping folks like my mom and dad who went years and decades without a bank account, right? And people who don't have identification and can't just walk into a bank. Oh, and by the way, the people in these communities don't trust banks. Oh, and by the way, they may be in a banking desert, right? Where there's no bank where they are. We don't think about these things, but it's very powerful. And that's what crypto does. It finally gives these people power, self-sovereignty, the ability to bank themselves. Again, you'll never hear that. Forbes, crypto, wherever it is, Bloomberg, they'll never talk about it. But that's the power of this, and why it is my responsibility to make sure it gets to those people and they understand what it means. And again, that's just Bitcoin. I'm not even talking about, Ethereum, the blockchain, Ether, the coin, right? Where I feel like the future of finance is being built right now on Ethereum. So long-winded way of answering the first question, but that's what really brought me to it. And this was in late 2015, 2016. And needless to say, my mind and awareness and knowledge have grown since then. Also has the space. It's probably more robust now than ever.
I had a similar awakening to, okay, this is something to pay attention to. But it was much after you. 2017 is when I started to look at it. And the reason I started was I started to hear about it and people ask questions, and I felt, okay, as an advisor, I should at least be able to speak intelligently about what it is and then direct people to good resources. I may not feel comfortable giving advice on it, but I can make sure people understand what it is, understand the risks, and then give them the information to educate themselves about whether or not, and then figure out if they really, really want to do it, how much can they allocate there to not blow themselves up. But I pulled it up. I read Crypto Assets, The Innovative Investor's Guide to Bitcoin and Beyond, and they told the story of a woman who was in Toronto, but I forget where she originally was from, and she had to walk to Western Union, and it was basically a 60% surcharge for her to send money back to her family, and what could the family back home do with that money that was paid just to make this transaction?
100%.
Now this is where my naiveness, is that even a word, naivety? I don't know what it'd be, but being naive comes in. I saw that around the world. I did not see it here in the U.S. And that's where, that's why I look at our relationship and how much I've grown as an individual is, I'm from outside of Indianapolis, the Midwest. It's super conservative. It's not real bad. I'm not exposed to a lot of different demographics. So I don't see banking deserts. That's something that I didn't know existed in the U.S. So I didn't know this. So talking with you and hearing about all of the people just in Brooklyn alone that are unbanked in these places, you would think everybody would have accounts. So similar thing that made me think, okay, this is something that has some legs. Like in these other countries, they don't have banks, but everybody has a cell phone, and then they can conduct business. So that was what really brought me to it. And like I said, I started doing my research. I met you, and I was like, okay, I know enough that if I have any big questions, I know who to go to. I don't have to spend more time learning it and then move on.
Right, and just to finish on that, so think about it. Half of the people in the South Bronx don't have an account. There's a really good piece that PBS did. I would encourage everyone watching this to go to YouTube and watch it. It's 11 minutes long, where you can learn about.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah,
on the blog.
And I believe if you just put Unbanked in the South Bronx or something like that, it's an 11-minute piece. It's amazing. The reporter did a 2-part series where she actually went behind the scenes at a check cashing place and actually worked there and understood the plight of the people, proximity, as I always talk about. But 50% of the population in the South Bronx, right? And then a quarter of African Americans in this country. So imagine the power of simply giving them access. Done. That's all I talk about. Access, right? And this is what crypto does. It finally provides access to those people. What the arguments we see on Twitter all the time, or you see, it is so far removed, and it makes me itch, because that is a diversion from what it's actually for, what it is about. And it gets even more nuanced and ridiculous and incomplete and inaccurate when you get down to getting financial advisors and giving financial advice, which we'll get to people around it. So, and which is, kind of why we're here. But, and the last thing is, you mentioned crypto assets. I encourage every financial advisor, every individual, if you have not read Crypto Assets, get that book. I will continue to say it, and I will continue to get looked at weird, but I believe 15, 20 years from now, that book is going to be looked at as the intelligent investor, right? Shout to Benjamin Graham, right? The intelligent investor of the crypto space. Yes, some of the information is outdated now, but that is a really good starting point and a good foundation for anyone that is looking to learn what this space is about.
Okay, so we got the rundown on crypto and the benefit of that and where that's playing, why that's so important. What's the difference between crypto and digital assets? And then we can get to Brady's question about utility, I think.
Here's the difference. I believe Jerome Powell this past Sunday on 60 Minutes said we can create money digitally, right? Mm-hmm. Digital money, right? So a digital asset. Now, again, there's a couple of distinctions here. The difference between digital assets and crypto assets is simply centralization created by a bank, right? Digital dollars, right? Your Venmo, your PayPal, those can be called digital assets. Now, the bifurcation of that, once you start to get into the estate planning conversation, digital assets are a laptop, a cell phone, a web address, all your social media pages. Those are quote unquote digital assets for estate planning purposes. Crypto assets, now, let's break that down. Crypto assets are decentralized, right? Bitcoin being the mothership, right? Decentralized, not run by anyone, peer-to-peer, no third party. That is the difference, right? Cryptography is involved, right? A blockchain is involved. And we can get it. Don't want to get too much into the nuance there. Public, private, permission, permissionless, all of that. From there now, right, where you start to look at for financial advisors in the room, crypto asset estate planning is different from digital asset estate planning. Now, in the middle is a digital fiduciary, someone that then says, all right, I'm allocating this person the responsibility to handle my likeness online, right? All of my website, all of that other stuff. Also, could be two people, could be whatever. That person would have the responsibility of taking care of the crypto assets, which are also digital, right? They have access to my private keys. And as I put on Twitter earlier today, the thing about crypto from an estate planning standpoint, which is different from, again, simply digital assets, is one, crypto, Bitcoin specifically. Let's just stay there because we should talk about Bitcoin. Everything else right now shouldn't be in the conversation. Bitcoin is considered property, right? So property comes with a whole set of other things, right? An appraisal within the state. And then you get into, and again, interesting to see with like a quick claim bill of sale, when you really start to talk about estate planning, is this something that Bitcoin becomes a part of with a quick claim bill of sale if I'm selling it to another family member or whatever? Just to break that down, again, you're the CFP here, but I'm sure you can explain it.
They don't teach us on the CFP. They don't teach us on the CFP.
So what quick claim bill of sale is just simply, it's a key piece of an estate plan where if I'm going to sell some property, usually, again, property is usually real estate, something like that. But again, for this conversation, Bitcoin is considered property. So I'm like, all right, you know what? Whatever. I'm divesting some of my assets. I'm selling my Bitcoin. That would go in my quick claim bill of sale that I'm selling that to whoever. And then I'm actually demonstrating ownership to that person. It's out of my estate, right? Or vice versa. So it will be interesting to see as crypto evolves and estate planning for crypto evolves, as this is a conversation or something that advisors have to have around that and estate planners have to have. So again, just to make that very clear, I need financial advisors to understand that. Digital assets, again, a domain, your laptop, your cell phone, your Facebook, your IG, that's considered digital assets. Now, crypto, again, can be included in that. And again, and I wrote this down just because it's super ridiculous, like all the acronyms in our business. RUFADA, right? Revised Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act, right? Is where you could go and get all the information on this, where they lay out specifically what financial advisors should pay attention to and estate planners when they're doing a crypto estate plan. Shout out to Jeff Levine, who did a really good piece on this. So that's where all of that information is in there. So again, if you are having a conversation with the client or anyone, again, if you don't work with a financial advisor and you are going to integrate digital assets and or crypto into your estate, that is a bifurcated conversation, because once you get into safely, right, hopefully safely storing your crypto, you get into cold storage versus hot storage, you get into multi-signature, you get into all these other conversations that you don't have if it's just simply, oh, okay, Justin gets access to my IG live, right? And he can handle that however he wants. Also, another distinction, very important here, I posted this on Twitter earlier as well, the American Bar Association put out a very robust piece on this, is with any other asset, you have to show a lot of documentation. Let's put it, I want to get into all the specific documents, but death certificate, all this other stuff to transfer ownership. With crypto, so long as I have your private keys, I'm cooking with grease. I got access to everything, right? So it's really important that, again, financial advisors and folks, if you are out there and you do own crypto, that one, the person that you, again, if something happens to me, and I think about this often, I'm like, well, if something happens to me, who is next to kin that could simply understand all of this stuff that I do, and I know that they would as well. And that's a very hard thing to try and figure out who that person is. This is why a lot of crypto is going to be lost. This is why a lot of financial advisors are going to get fired. And this is also why estate planners are going to make a lot of money in the future, because this is a huge opportunity. And again, a lot of financial advisors out there should get familiar with Casa. They have something called Casa Covenant. It's a company that helps with crypto estate planning. And I believe through Casa Covenant, they allow you to integrate your financial advisor and your estate planner, your lawyer into that with them through a multi-signature. We can get into that type of thing. So that's the main distinction here for people to understand. Digital assets, totally different than crypto assets. And in the middle there, again, you should have a digital fiduciary, someone that is responsible for your digital life in the event you can't be you, right? And you're gone. And then that person can also handle your crypto assets, or you would designate that to someone else that is simply responsible for handling your private keys. So whatever that is. So, and again, I want to get more into that because I'm sure there are people here that own crypto and are looking for, are unclear about a lot of things. So I definitely want to get into that in terms of what ownership means.
So for those that are here that maybe are interested or don't know a lot about crypto, or just finally, like this is their maybe a little bit of an introduction, safe to say, digital assets is the umbrella. Mm-hmm. And under that umbrella, you could have your website, your IG, your social media stuff, and your crypto assets. So yep. All crypto assets are digital assets. Not all digital assets are crypto assets.
There you go. That sounds like the Series 65 question.
And then the other thing I want to go over again,
Jay Wayne, happy birthday, man.
Mr. Wayne. So you live in this world. Yeah. I float around in and out of it sometimes when people are asking questions. Cold storage, what that means, real quick, because that's when I think of estate planning issues, that's the biggest thing I think of is I've moved my cryptocurrencies off of Coinbase or wherever it is that I've purchased it. Please. I've got it on my ledger. There's no beneficiary designation. If Ange didn't know, she'd have no idea what that thing is, and she would toss that. Now, right. I don't have very much, so not a big deal. But that's what I think of is there's not a beneficiary designation on the account that lets you know. Yep. So like basic 101 estate planning to me would say, let your advisor, let your spouse, your significant other, your partner know we have crypto. Yeah. This is where it's at. Mm-hmm. You see this little device that looks like a zip drive, never throw it away. Yep. Here's where the keys are. I've got it back up there, and let them know so they know what it is. And then worst case scenario, even if your advisor is not qualified to help out, they know what you have. They know where it's at. They've got the keys. They can go, we said it's Casa? Was that the company?
Casa, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Casa. They can go to Casa, or they can call up you and say, hey, here's my dilemma. We've got this. I've got everything here, but I have no idea how much we have or what it might be. Like, to me, that's the estate plan. I didn't even think about the ownership and the quick deed and all that type of stuff as well. So
yeah. So again, it's when you look at this now. So again, let's break it down from a financial advisor standpoint, because I think it's really important for financial advisors to understand. A client walks in tomorrow, says, I have $50,000 of Bitcoin. Couple of things the financial advisor should do. By the way, financial advisors, if you are watching this and you know clients own crypto, your investor policy statement has to change. Your risk tolerance questionnaire has to change. The questions, your intake questions that you ask have to change today. Why? Because you're going to ask that client, where do you own it, right? Or where do you buy it? They may say Coinbase. If they do, you don't panic, because it is the best house in a bad neighborhood. But you should have hardware wallets branded with your RIA. You slide across the table to the client. You say, hold on to that. We're going to talk about that. And then you say, okay, well, what do you own? And they're going to say, well, I bought some Ripple and I bought some Ether. And, the guy at the barbershop told me to buy some Bitcoin. And so now you want to catalog what the client owns, where they own it. Obviously, ask why, how much, all of these other things. At some point, after a very robust conversation, for CYA, which we all know to do, help the client get those assets off of Coinbase, right? Because, one, crypto custodians right now are acting as a lot of different things. They are custodians, they are banks, they are brokers, they're everything. You want to help the client get away from there. So for a couple of reasons. One, again, to document it, catalog it, everything else, but also back to that estate planning conversation, to take it off so the client actually understands what it's like to actually own it. Because again, you can't take your Apple off of the exchange, right? Like you can't do that. With crypto, you can actually take that and have them have a conversation. Okay, well, let's just say, for instance, they have a robust and large Bitcoin position, and they're saying this is for 20 years from now. You want to help them put that in cold storage, which is simply offline, name of the book, crypto assets, which is just simply offline and the safest way you can store them. So you definitely want to help with that. So for advisors, again, I would go through a very robust set of questions of what you're asking clients about their crypto. Why do they own it? Where do they own it? How much? How is it stored? Are you familiar with wallets? Here's a hardware wallet. Here's a copy of crypto assets. Here's some some research from Delphi Digital or Interaxis, right? You should have these resources for the client. As an individual, right, there's a saying by Andreas Antonopoulos, who is pretty much the doyen and god of this space. Not your coins, not your keys, not your coins. So long as your assets are held at crypto or Gemini, at Coinbase or Gemini or whatever, that's really not your crypto. You want to own the private keys, which is essentially your savings account number, right? You want to hold that so that now you can protect them. The thing with that is it's still very early in crypto, so that is very complicated. So there are services, right, advisors or other things out there to help you with that. But it's very important to understand, again, whether it's a Binance or all these other places, you're putting yourself at risk of losing your crypto if you have it on an exchange. The goal is to go there to buy it and then immediately turn around and get it off. There is a lot of steps. It is very complicated, which is why, again, I will say this, the most important company in crypto, bar none, is Cash App. Because when you buy on Cash App, it goes deeply into cold storage for a company that's building specifically around Bitcoin, and you don't have to worry about that. And they allow you to move Bitcoin on and move Bitcoin off, which is huge. So something, again, a financial advisor should be aware of, and everyone, should be aware of what, how is Casa different from Coinbase? Let's keep track of that one.
I got that in the utility. I'll tell you what, there are very few things that make me more nervous than moving my Bitcoin off of Coinbase. So full transparency, like I buy $50 every 2 weeks of Bitcoin. Automate it, let it go, and every so often move it off. But every time I go to send it from there to my wallet, it makes me nervous, and I always do like a small amount first, make sure that I see it. So I end up paying more than I should. But it makes me nervous because if I mess it up, it's gone. Like that's
100%.
That's one of the scary things with it.
And yes, and that's what crypto needs to get over right now. It is which is why, again, from inception, it's very important where you go to even get introduced. A lot of people ran to Coinbase in 2017 because they made it very easy, right? And everyone's like, I wanted to buy it. It was an app on your phone, right? And that's why I ran up like that. It was very easy to do. But if you do it if my first introduction is Coinbase right now is the quickest, most efficient, easiest, safest, in my opinion, way to do it right now. You already know it's safe. It's in cold storage. You don't have to worry about moving it or whatever. If you decide to take it off, again, yeah, there are steps to do that, but they do a very good job with education as well. But and that leads me to this point. Again, all of the financial advisors out there, you should know what Coinbase is. You should know what Abra is. You should know what MetalPay is. You should know what Cash App is. You should know what these things are, because I could promise you, when we crack through 10,000 and we're approaching 15, and I'm not even talking about all-time highs, and this is if, right? We may not even go that way, but in the event we do, we get another run-up like we did in 2017, there are so many financial advisors that are going to get fired. because they are not going to know. And clients are either going to own it, because they do. Your clients own it. They do. They're just not telling you. They're either going to tell the advisor they own it, or they're going to want access to it, and they're going to say, oh, what about this? What about that? Again, just be conversant. You don't have to know the difference between the Ethereum blockchain and the Bitcoin blockchain and Polkadot and Chainlink. You don't need to know all that. You should just know the resources that are out there, because clients will ask. They want to know. And again, as fiduciaries, right? We have a responsibility, yay or nay, to be aware of this stuff. And if not, be able to direct them in the direction of somebody that can help them understand what the next steps are to protect themselves. And again, I think most of us learn now is, and I've learned a long time ago, I'm not, I don't do robust financial planning, but if a client needs that, I'm going to send them there, right? We have to learn now to be able to outsource this stuff and send people to other advisors that have an expertise in that area.
I'm gonna put advisor hat on real quick and just put out there, if as an investor, if you're not comfortable and you're not knowledgeable in this, nothing says you have to go out and invest in it. Just like I don't think you should go out and invest in stocks and investments anywhere that you don't understand. This falls into that category, especially given the dynamics of storage and all the other things, the estate planning issue. Like this is right now, today, it's more complicated than a normal investment. So if that's not something you want to take on, that's not something you want to educate yourself on, and you can't find somebody to help you, I just want to put out there, it's okay not to get into this space. If you save and live below your means, do all the right things and invest in a diversified portfolio, you're probably going to be okay in the long run, and you could do that without crypto. But if you are interested in this and you have the risk tolerance for that and you believe in what the potential could be, then by all means, figure out how much you can afford to go into it. The funny thing I was thinking about, you say Cash App. Roman and Leo know Cash App because I think it's in that Roddy Ricch song. He mentions about Cash App. And the funny thing is, so I've actually thought about paying the boys, and then we'll get to these two questions real quick because I know we can go real quick. I'm thinking about paying the boys their allowance in Bitcoin, setting them up an account, which I don't even know about, like UGMAs, if you can do that, or I just set it aside in a Coinbase account that one day I'll give to them. But the reason I want to do it is, let's just say this is the lottery ticket that goes off, then that could potentially be a game changer for them and let them start a business when they're young. But I also think that there is something entrepreneurial and creative for being in that space. I think if they have a Cash App account and that's where it's going in, and then I teach them how to take it off, they're getting into an area that will expose them to more technology and more things that are out there that I want them to get exposed to. So I almost want to dangle it out there to get them to learn more about it and get into spaces that their friends don't know about, so they can learn about it early on.
A couple things. Two very important things here. The most important thing that people could do right now, advisor or just someone watching this, is educate yourself on crypto right now, because the majority of people are missing it or ignoring it. If you can get really smart on it, if you decide to invest later, that's your business. But if you just understand this, it's going to be powerful because it's not going away and it's going to be everywhere. So just simply getting educated on it and being conversant will be powerful, and you'll have a lot of leverage. Education right now on it is key, because there's in so many areas that people don't even understand yet. And there's so much, because I had a conversation, someone called me, he's like, well, Tyrone, crypto seems quiet and there's not much going on. I'm like, you're nuts. I've never been more bullish than I am right now. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. It just hasn't been reflected in the price. So education is very important. Read blogs, books, the Bitcoin standard, crypto assets. There's, the digital asset revolution. There's so many different books and things that you can read. That's the first part. Second part is, if you are a parent right now, or you are an uncle like myself, my nephews own more Bitcoin than most people, but they're going to grow up in a world where Bitcoin is just going to be it. It's going to be the thing, right? Digital assets are going to be the thing, stable coins, the whole deal. So I would behoove a parent to and there's a lot of Bitcoin books and crypto books for kids, just to expose them to that. Because the world that we know right now, they're not going to inherit. And oh, by the way, this whole thing that is happening now with the pandemic or whatever, it's just ushering in the speed at which this is going to hit planet Earth and get people to understand. When you look at, again, if you look at what's happened with stable coin issuance, since this whole thing, it has skyrocketed for access to dollars. Stablecoin is just simply, back to that point, a digital dollar. Fiat denominated, there's two types, right? There's algorithmic, which we won't get into, but fiat denominated stablecoins where people actually, it's backed by assets, and there's digital dollars that people could use, right? And again, for financial advisors, another thing that you should understand is stablecoins, because at some point when crypto is fully integrated into our practices in your workflow, you will take a client's portfolio and rebalance and move some of that cash into, it'll sweep into a stablecoin account where that client could say, hey, Justin, take 50,000 of my stablecoin, move it into Dharma, and I want to get 7% interest, convert it into DAI, and I want interest on whatever, right? That's good. That's going to be a thing, believe it. So advisors should start to understand what stable coins are now. And if you go back in my tweets a year and a half ago, I was saying, and again, I'm not that profit guy, but I'm like, stable coins is probably going to be something here. And I believe 10 billion or so locked up in stable coins right now. Also very big for the unbanked. So yes, you should do that. But I think we have a responsibility to teach kids and teach our kids now, again, about digital money, about what money is going to look like. They should understand, right, that Bitcoins are divisible into Satoshis, like all these things. So happy born day, man. Go have some cake or some salt and straw. In my honor.
All right, real quick. I think we have about 10 minutes left because I hopped on. I know I can restart it, but I don't
let's do it.
So real quick, difference between Casa and Coinbase.
So Coinbase is simply an exchange where you can go and buy crypto. Right now, you can, if you are high net worth, you can go to Casa and they'll help you with that. But Casa has a lot of different things that they do. But what I was saying, the one product that Casa has, as far as their covenant product, is to help you with the estate planning. Coinbase is not going to do that. So that's mostly the difference. Coinbase is a one-stop shop for everything crypto. Casa is not that. It's very drilled down to folks who are looking for a more professional, white glove approach to their crypto assets.
All right, and then the utility of digital assets versus crypto. I think you kind of hit on it, but I don't know if there's any more you want to add to it.
Yeah, the utility, again, that's a very nuanced conversation. I think in the digital economy, they both will have utility. I think crypto now, if you want to get into the narratives that people create around Bitcoin, is it digital gold? Is it a safe haven? Is it all of these other things? That is one aspect that you have in crypto assets. That's, again, also a digital assets. Thank you. And then with digital assets, period, whether you're talking about central bank dollars or whatever, that utility will just be able to send, like right now, so people don't have to wait 5 months for their stimulus checks. They will go right into their account. So that's where to have some utility there. So again, very nuanced conversation. And again, for me, scaling it down on a level where the average everyday person will be able to understand crypto and actually use it is, again, the ability to transact, receive money, send money instantly, not have to wait 6 days for money to clear, and so on and so forth. And then with crypto, just, two examples, right? Bitcoin being the biggest. If folks are going to use it as a store of value or safe haven or whatever, we're calling it this week. And then again, with Ethereum, the Ethereum blockchain and Ether, there's a lot of things you can do there. Lending, borrowing, a lot of different things that you can do. So the utility is definitely bifurcated, but it all depends on what it is. I believe, though, in the future, the immediate future, I think most of it will be for people to simply transfer value. The store of value and safe haven narratives are a little bit, more nuanced and advanced for folks that understand truly what Bitcoin is.
Depending on the feedback, if we get a lot of people wanting more of this talk, we may have to pull you back in and do a talk just on Ether and Ethereum and what that is relative to Bitcoin. Real quick, so anybody who doesn't know anything, just now learning about crypto, can impress their friends. Big B versus little b Bitcoin, what's the difference?
Yes, big B versus little b Bitcoin. When you see Bitcoin written out, capital B Bitcoin is the Bitcoin blockchain, the actual blockchain, which is separate from little b Bitcoin, which is the actual currency. Two totally different things. Oh, and by the way, for the people who say Bitcoin and not blockchain and blockchain, stop that. You can't have one without the other. So, but again, here's the most important thing, and I think probably the most important. Alex, what's up, man? Most important news to get people to understand the power of the Bitcoin blockchain, just what it means. And I encourage folks to we're talking about reading. Just Google the Bitcoin white paper. It's 9 pages.
I'll link to it.
Yeah, just read as much as you can. Fascinating stuff. But I want to say this was last year or a year and a half ago, Microsoft came out and said that they were going to do their decentralized ID on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's all you need to know about how secure it is, how powerful it is, the possibilities that are there. And that news flew under the radar, but that's how impressive it is. And I think we would all agree Microsoft is a pretty impressive organization with some really smart people. And if I remember correctly, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, took a picture with Adam Back, who is probably CEO of Blockstream, and he's a pretty prominent figure in the crypto space. That to me, at that point, I'm like, all right, this is a big sign that the possibilities are here are endless. So again, I think for people to just understand what it is, Big B, the blockchain, right? You'll also in turn learn about little b, the actual currency, and that you can't have one without the other.
So knowing those differences, one, can help you impress your friends. Two, I would imagine allow you to maybe spot some scams out there when the scammer is using the wrong letter. You can realize that anybody who's in the know knows which B is which.
Right.
But that just shows you all the little nuances to this space that people need to kind of grasp.
Right. Is this all way too complex for every year? If so, how do we fix that? Very good question.
You gotta be quick.
What was I gonna say? What we got? 10 minutes?
About 6 now.
Oh, okay. All right. So what I'm going to say is, again, what's also very important for people to understand, and I think this is one of the common misconceptions, and I get a lot of DMs from folks that are getting scammed and all this other stuff, is you don't have to buy full Bitcoin. You can buy a piece of a Bitcoin. You don't have to buy a full Bitcoin. So people get intimidated by the price. Again, this comes with learning about it. And also all of the scams where they're, DMing you, telling you that if you put 100 in, it'll turn into 1,000, and they're trying to confuse you with all this janky jargon. Ignore it. That's not how it works. And it's straight up scamming right now. And they're trying to capitalize on people's desperation and fear right now. And shout out to Kevin who asked this question. Kevin's a client. Shout out to Kevin. Yes, it is way too complex right now. It's still very early. How do we fix it? The messenger matters, right? Like I said, there's people that are going to have to take this to the everyday person and make it very, very simple. I would hope, like I explained to you and some other folks, but make it really, really simple so people understand how does it fit into the scope of what it is that they actually know, right? And just ask people, like I asked I put this on Twitter, like my sister called it space money, right? And my mother called it a big nickel. Right. So it's like people just kind of create their own narratives around it based on what it is that, their framework of understanding. But we do have to do a better job, those of us that know, to kind of level it and get, look people eye to eye and explain it to them on their level.
I think that's a good ending point before we get kicked off, because I want to get a few last things in there. First off, thank you for taking the time. And I know that we could have done this probably for another 2 hours. There's so much to go into.
Hell yeah.
But I wanted it just to be, like, as I said, I'm getting more questions about it. I'm seeing people, it's becoming less quiet now.
Yep.
So that means there's more people coming to the space who have no idea. And the whole goal was just to give a little bit of foundation, some risks that are associated with it from the estate planning side, because that's something that most people don't even think about. They think about all, like, the fluctuations and the volatility, but there's more to think about with these, different from other investments. And then I do think it's good for people to see how complex this is, to help them decide whether or not they even need to mess with it. And I think to Kevin's part, that part of it is just financial literacy. So in addition to budgeting and all these other things, this stuff needs to work its way in, and this is what it is, and this is how it's used, and that for. So hopefully we can do this. Maybe we have a monthly crypto talk where we just keep adding to the mix and have a channel for if you want. Now,
yeah, no,
you know,
absolutely. Again, it's a very nuanced conversation. It's very complex. You can't handle it in an hour, 2 hours, 3 months.
Right.
Like, I learn every day. So yeah, I think there's a lot to teach people. Kudos to you for doing this. This is something people are gonna be able to come back to. And again, we didn't really go a lot of places we could have gone, but again, this is all I talk about. Is, you know, I'm available. Follow me on Twitter. It's there.
I'll get you back on, so long as I'm not taking away from your shine on your station, what you're doing, but bring you on. But final question, Biggie's birthday, best Biggie song.
Oh man, who shot you? Who shot you? That's my personal favorite. Now
I like that, but I'm a Tupac fan, and I don't like it because of that.
Who shot you is my favorite, but his best song. Oh man, I don't know. It's hard to go with. I mean, Unbelievable. I mean, Juicy is probably one of the best hip hop songs ever made.
I think that's too obvious, and I love Juicy, but I think there's other songs that are better. I think so many people automatically go to Juicy, but I think it depends on the mood. Depending on what mood you're in, might steer you to a different Biggie song.
Well, I think change your mind next time you're at a black cookout and Juicy comes on. it'll change your mind, my friend. Everything stops.
All right, well, we'll leave it on that note. So, Ty, thank you very much for taking the time. Everybody, thanks for watching. I'm gonna save this, put it on YouTube, turn a podcast out of it. In the show notes on allaboutyourbenjamins.com will be the links to the books, to the white papers, to the Bar Association. All of that will be there. So all the resources will be there. And I'll let you know next time we do it. I think the next one will be, we'll hit Ether and bring everybody in to speak with that. So, Ty, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank everybody for tuning in.
Right. Next Thursday, 7 o'clock, Andrew Zaro, where health and finance interact and exchange with each other, because part of financial planning needs to be taking care of ourselves. So Drew just commented, he's my guest next week. We're going to talk about wealth, health, all that type of stuff.
Drew! Very depressing IG page for those of us who want to be like him.
Makes you feel bad. That's why I hired him, to help me with my nutrition. All right, everybody. Have a
Love
great
you, man.
evening. Ty, thank you very much. Everybody, thanks for watching. And we'll see you next Thursday, 7 o'clock, same spot.